Deep in the jungles of northern Guatemala is a significant Mayan archaeological site.
I'm in Uaxactun. It's a city about 12 miles north of the considerably more famous Tikal. Now in 378, Uaxactun was conquered by Fire is Born, and he came from Tikal, and he claimed Uaxactun ancestry. They're always doing that, these Mayans. They claim ancestry from people before and thus legitimize themselves. And we know about this, and we know precisely the date, 378, because of inscriptions that we can date quite precisely. Now, Uaxactun has an observatory. This observatory is what I'm standing on now. There's a platform here, and you can look across at those three mounds over there. And this was the first Mayan site which people realized, oh, hey, this actually functions as an observatory. And even today, though others have been found, this is the best and most precise. So it's this site that made people think that, oh, the Maya, they really knew about the heavens and all that sort of stuff. This particular mound that I'm standing on is one of the first things that was ever excavated. It was done in the 20s and 30s. Not brilliantly well, but it was the 20s and 30s, to be fair. And they found 7 temples, one upon the other. After tunnelling in, they realised that each had been built on the remains of the previous one. There was actually an 8th, which of course is what they found first, but that just crumbled to nothing. So we've lost the 8th, but actually that was sort of a good thing, because the 8th preserved the 7th, and wow, the 7th was amazing. The stucco was still white and complete, and there were 18 clearly visible, what they call masks. I mean, they're not masks that you would wear, they're great big stucco face sculptures on the side of a building. There were 18 of them looking pretty spectacular. So they realized that this was a very sophisticated monument, and it seems that each temple was built upon the previous one, renewing it every 52 years. And this is significant because the Maya had more than one calendar. And there was if you like, the standard calendar, the solar calendar, but there was another ritual calendar, which was a bit strange. You had a 260-day year, and every 52 years, these two would coincide, which was obviously cosmically significant. And you would want to mark something of cosmic significance with the renewal of a temple. So this was 8 layers, if you like Russian dolls, each built on the previous one. And over there, some of those mounds have got 12 layers. Sometimes people talk about these as onion skins. Now, Uaxactun is actually an older city than Tikal. We know that this place was occupied in around 600 BC, and it's possible that it could have been 400, even 1,000 before that, but there we start to get a little uncertain. So this was occupied significantly before Tikal. Now, when Fire is Born came here and conquered the place, this became a satellite city of Tikal, and the two allied cities then dominated the area, it seems, for about 180 years. Even so, there was quite a lot of waxing and waning. There was a definite slump in which no monuments were built for a very long time, a couple of centuries, but then it picked up in the late Classical. Then you get something called the Terminal Classical, when things start going wrong. There are many theories, these abound. It could be warfare, it could be famine, it could be a drought, but it seems that these three things all feed into each other. If you have a drought, that might cause a famine, and a famine might cause an increase in competition for resources, and that might lead to war, which then might cause more famine, and so forth. So it's possible that these three things turn into a cycle of death, and that might explain why the Mayan classical world collapsed. The last known inscribed date from here is 889, and shortly after that it seems that the city pretty much collapsed. Now, there are a few misunderstandings, I feel, about well, let me give you the spiel. People say that, oh wow, the Maya, they were astrologically really sophisticated. They knew all about how to observe the stars and so forth, and they were. There must have been mathematical geniuses to work out all the alignments and make all those predictions. It was quite extraordinary. And you know what? There are there are thousands of alignments. If you draw lines between significant points in places like this, big complicated cities, you get all these very significant alignments, which is proof that these people were extremely astrologically sophisticated. Okay, 3 things wrong with that. 1, it's not astrologically sophisticated. There's no such thing as being astrologically sophisticated. Astrology is the daft notion that for some reason, just because the moon happens to be over there, some people, but not other people, will be fortuitously or disadvantageously affected. Okay, this is a groundless nonsense. It's astronomical sophistication, which is, astronomy is the observation of actual stuff, you know, moons, planets, stars, that stuff. It's science. Okay. Second thing, to do with the significance of an alignment. Let's just imagine that you've got just 2 standing stones. Okay, we've got one here, and we've got one here, say. Now, that's one alignment, right, isn't it? You can align the 2 like that. The center to the center, that is an alignment. Great. Oh, but wait a minute, surely if it's a really big stone, it'd be much easier to make the observation if you looked along one edge, like that. Oh, but in which case, do you align with that edge of the other stone, or possibly the center of the other stone? Or maybe, for extra precision, you line up the tiny, tiny crack between the diagonal edges like that. Oh, but you could do the same from the top, or from this edge. So you've got 3 possibilities from there, 3 from there, 3 from there. And that's just 2 stones. Oh, but wait a minute, that's just with the one thing, like, say, the sun. Oh, and only at one time, because, of course, dawn is a significant time, and noon is a significant time, and so is dusk. And there are 365 days a year. Okay, so it's 3 times 365 days times 9. Oh, and that was just the sun. Of course, you've also got the moon and the various visible planets like Mars and Venus and Jupiter and so forth. Oh, wait a minute, I'm forgetting stars. Now, what's the thing I knew about stars? Oh yeah, there are loads of them, absolutely loads of them. And with the sole exception of the pole star, they're all moving all the time as well. So, now imagine that you haven't just got 2 stones, you've got 20 in a circle. Now, you can draw all those 9 alignments from all the stones to all the other stones to all the heavenly bodies on all the days at all the significant times. Oh, wait a minute, but they've also got outliers, haven't you? Because you've got mountain peaks. Admittedly, I can't see any from here because there's jungle in the way, but there wouldn't have been jungle here, so there'll be distant mountain peaks. And of course, between the mountain peaks, you've also got the valleys, which are significant points. So you've got lines from every point of everything that you've been talking about to all those points as well, and all the other things. So multiply that up, and you've got, I don't know, 462 quadrillion possible alignments. So, the chances that you don't find loads of significant alignments is bordering on 0. If you think you've found 200 significant alignments and this is proof of something, well, I'm sorry, you're not looking hard enough. You only found 2,000 significant alignments? Okay, right, I think I've made my point there. The third point is sophistication. Oh, wow, they could precisely line up with the solstices and the equinoxes. That's just amazing. How do they do that? Well, you get 2 blokes and 2 sticks. You get one guy to stand wherever it is that you think is significant, say the centre of this platform, and he puts a stick there and leaves it there for a whole year. Okay, well, that's easy. And then you get another friend, say dawn for some reason. Let's go with dawn, but it could be dusk. Let's say dawn is the alignment that you're interested in. Okay, Brian, we'll call him Brian, he gets up just before dawn, and you stand here and say, left a bit, Brian, and you look at the top of your stick and go, yep, that lines up with the sun, great, put the stick there. And then you do that again the next day and the next day and the next day, and the stick will move along until eventually the next day it's near enough in the same place, and then it starts coming back, and you realise, when it got to the extreme, that's either it's going to be it's going to be one of the solstices. And so just by doing that, 2 blokes and 2 sticks, and really just common sense, it doesn't require any mathematical knowledge, you can get a very, very precise alignment to the solstices. And guess what? The equinoxes are in between. And that's what we've got here. Now, I said that you could get loads and loads of significant alignments out of lots of things, and you can. However, some things are unlikely to be coincidence. Solstice, for instance, and equinox, those are really major alignments, and these do crop up in ancient temples, and indeed in standing stone circles in Britain. Very, very commonly, all the standing stone circles in Britain have got a major alignment on a solstice, and that's not a coincidence. And what we've got here is a point to observe the equinoxes, which is straight down the middle of that mid-lump over there. And the left-hand edge of the raised bit over there gives you your summer solstice, and the right-hand edge of that right-hand lump there gives you your winter solstice, and pretty precise. You can imagine if you've got a sight base, your foresight and your back sight that are this long, you can be pretty precise. So it's easy to be satisfied then that this is an accurate and definite observatory.
At what angle does a staircase become a ladder? The modern town owes its existence to the archaeological site and is built around the remains of the airstrip, which was established before any decent roads were. Quite a mixture of the old and the new. Oh. Hello. To get to the Mayan site, one wanders up this lane.
This is the stela, the actual one in the actual place where it was found, which shows us the picture of fire is born. He came here from Tikal to conquer, but actually he wasn't originally from Tikal. No, he had conquered Tikal. He had come from Teotihuacan in Mexico. And he is pictured here with the usual finery of headdress and so forth. He's in profile. There's his face there. His nose is pointing that way. He has the huge earrings that kings are often pictured with. And in his right hand, you can see a club which has 1, 2, 3 on the top and 1, 2, 3 sort of teeth sticking out of it. These are probably obsidian, sharpened obsidian pieces that have been set into a wooden club. So is it a club? Is it an obsidian sword? Well, you decide. Now, in his other hand, it's difficult to see, but he has a hooked, weighted stick with a wide bit in the middle of it. And there are 2 circles here. I'm not entirely sure what they're for, but the rest I recognize as an atlatl. Now, an atlatl, sometimes they're called spear throwers, but they're not actually for throwing spears. The atlatl itself was, if you like, its own sort of weapon. It was a javelin-like thing. Sometimes they're a bit shorter. Sometimes they get called darts rather than javelins. But whereas a spear is stiff and you grab it and throw it like that, with the atlatl, you hook on the end of it, the one end of the atlatl, and then it's got a weight on it to give it a bit of oomph. And as you start to throw, the whole dart or javelin or whatever you want to call it, the atlatl sometimes is the thing that you throw as well, bends. And as it bends, you're storing energy in it. And then it straightens and springs off the atlatl as you follow through. And this adds quite a lot of speed and power to your throw. In Europe, atlatls were being used in the Mesolithic for hunting, and then they were superseded by bows. Anyway, the atlatl is quite characteristic of the Teotihuacan culture. And some people speculate that it wasn't just their preferred weapon or their symbolic weapon or the weapon that they chose to use as a symbol of war, but it might actually have given them a tactical advantage in battle. Personally, I think that's probably exaggerating things. I'm sure the Maya were perfectly capable of chucking stuff back. But anyway, that is the symbolic weapon that we associate with fire is born.
Yeah, he's got a good grip on that. Safe as houses.
Here I am in one of the Mayan culture's iconic structures. This is a ball court. It's a sports field, and they have a flat rectangular section in the middle, then they have a short vertical face, and then they have a sloping bit, and then they have a vertical bit, and then we think that above those were where the audience might sit and regard the sportsmen doing their stuff. This one has no hoops. A lot of people are familiar with the stone hoops. They're usually on the side here with a small hole in the middle, but they're not always found, and no evidence of any was found here. The rules, we don't actually know the rules properly. Various people have tried to reconstruct a game to get it something that you can actually play. It seems that it's something to do with keeping a ball, which was a rubber ball, which of course rubber is something that this part of the world had that Europe didn't, and you kept this rubber ball moving, and somehow you scored points by being able to keep it moving better than the opposition. It was a team game, and we don't know a huge amount about it, but we do recognize a ball court when we see one. And sometimes you get them 2, 3 or more lined up. Were they playing a league all at the same time? Was it like Wimbledon, where you had several courts playing at the same time and the crowd moving between one and the other, seeing who was winning? Your guess is as good as mine, frankly. Yes, I agree. That is a very big locust.
The geology here is limestone, great for caves and making stucco, but not so great for agriculture. The local Christian preacher was terribly noisy. You'll hear him in the background.
So why is Uaxactun called Uaxactun? Well, it was named such by someone who absolutely revelled, well I certainly would, in the name of Silvanus Morley. Why don't they name people stuff like that anymore? Silvanus Morley was from the United States, and he was funded by the Carnegie Foundation to explore, and in 1916 he found this place, this amazing lost city in the forest. So he had to come up with a name for it, obviously, and so he thought, well, Uaxactun sounds a little bit like Washington, where the Carnegie Foundation is located, and it also means in the local language 8 stones, so it was a bit of a pun. Perhaps, we're not completely certain that it actually was a pun on Washington, but a lot of people have noticed the coincidence. Now, he found this amazing city, and clearly some civilization had created it, but what? People didn't know of any civilizations down here at the time. So was it a lost tribe of Israelites? Were they amazing seafaring Phoenicians, or possibly the lost Atlanteans? And yes, these theories were actually taken seriously for quite some while, and it was only after a Russian called Yuri, somebody help me out with his surname? Say again? Kunerasov, thank you. There are various people pretending not to be here. Deciphered the Mayan glyphs, that it was realized that no, these were a separate people. This was a separate civilization, and it had this amazing Mayan calendar, which you may have heard about. And you may also have heard that on the 21st of December in 2012, the Mayan calendar came to an end. But as a lot of scientific and shrewd observers noted, the world didn't end. This building that I'm on has a rather disappointing name, I'm afraid. It's just building A18. In Mayan cities, you generally get a letter or a number, or in this case both, assigned. It's a little bit disappointing, and perhaps more disappointing again is the name of the king that we have very good reason to believe built this. He is King A22, yeah, whereas most of the kings have known and wonderfully exotic names like Spear Thrower Owl and Fire is Born and so forth. He's just A22. They had a gap, they knew there was a guy there, and A22, that was him. Now it has a very definite front and back. So looking this way, which is south, so this would catch the sun, we have the front, and you see it slopes down, it has lots of entrances, a big grand front there, and there's a big broad set of steps there. Some people say that they're ritual steps because they're so broad. But they also are a good size for seating, so you could perhaps have a Senate council-sized meeting sitting on those steps. But the back is very different. Secluded is this rear corridor, and the back of the temple is just a sheer drop. They obviously weren't very interested in impressing anyone with twiddly bits at the back. That's just a sheer drop. And there you can see at the bottom there are holes along this wall here, and it is thought that the purpose of these, well, there are more than one, but one of the purposes is if you're mopping this floor and you just want to sluice away the water, well, you can just do that out one of these holes and it'll dribble down the back of the building, which you don't care so much about. Wouldn't want to do that down the front, that would leave stains and so forth. Another purpose, though, of holes on Mayan structures is that they're there for scaffolding. So as the builders were building up these stones, they needed platforms to do so, and they would need a way of anchoring those platforms. So they had holes in which they would put wooden poles, and then they would be able to anchor their scaffolding to that. And then they would plug up the holes at the end with stucco. And so the surface of the wall, if it had these just scaffolding holes in it, would look smooth and nice. But of course the stucco didn't last as long as the stones, and so a lot of the stucco eventually got weathered out. And today, when modern restorers come along and rebuild these temples, they use the same scaffolding holes as the Mayans. Well, waste not, want not, eh? Right, now I've got to work out how to get down. It was a bit hairy actually getting here. Yeah, I can do it.
Darkness falls very fast here.
Inside here, and the state of preservation is pretty impressive. These beams above me are not the original wood. They've been placed where the original wood would have been, in the correct holes. And what we do have here is original stucco, which is pretty impressive. And there's a lot of graffiti on it, some of which is genuinely ancient, but it's actually very difficult to decipher. I was shown some of it earlier, and I have, though I've searched in vain for it, but it's been covered over with loads and loads of who's it? Somebody called Wilson. Okay, Wilson, be ashamed of yourself. Why did you write your name there? Who's this carving a great big love heart with an arrow through it? This is Mayan stucco, for goodness sake. Don't just carve your name into it. And possibly the most horrendous, egregious example is here. This is the original. You see this very, very smooth surface with red on it? That's the original surface there with the original paint on it, and someone has carved straight through it. Let's just move on. It's just too painful for me. We have here 3 beams of wood acting as lintels over the top of this door. Now this one and this one have been placed in modern times, but this central one, would you believe, is one of 2 original pieces of wood in this temple. Now you can see that eventually some creepy crawlies have managed to burrow into it and degrade it a bit. This type of wood, however, is amazingly long lasting, and this is the same wood that you get the chicle chewing gum from, and I'm really amazed that in this climate any sort of wood can survive anything like this long.
We had quite a long drive back home and kept an eye out for jaguars. This apparently was our best chance to see one. We didn't see one. We did see this fella though. Then, back at the hotel, I could count at leisure the number of times I had been bitten through my trousers and socks.
Lindybeige!